Hello, everyone. Today, our topic is IBM Security Verify, Data Privacy, and Consent Management. Speaker for today is Tushar.
So we are going to have a demonstration about each concept, and we'll be creating some in this session. And we will be having a very simple use case where you log into OIDC application, create a purpose, check the rules, create a rule, create an end user license agreement, and see what are the different consent, how user sees its consent, how it deletes it. Okay, so let's move on to the demo. Let me bring the browser which we can use for demonstration purpose. At this time, I will just will take you through a user who logs in and tries to connects to an application where I have not configured any rules or have not configured any purposes for this application. So it's expected that when the user logs in, it doesn't get prompted for any of the marketing consent or end user license agreement that you see here. You don't see any prompt related to that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this into a flow where you see the consent presented, and in that process, I'll show you how those are created and how those are associated. At this point, before so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out as the user, simplified user, and then log in as an admin user. Or I could have logged in as privacy officer as well. For now, I'll just log in as admin user, and then I go to the admin console. Here you see there are options related to data privacy and consent. These are the options that will help you to write your privacy rules, create your data purposes, and user license agreements. So these are the places. So let's see first data purpose. You see on the screen, there are plenty of data purposes already created. Okay, so I'm going to take you through one of the purpose which I'm going to create, or at least show here how you can create. So you just give a purpose name here and give a purpose ID. If you don't give it, it'll just create that information, and type a description as purpose to create, purpose to get consent from user. And you can give a tag of around maybe India, then DPA. Okay, this tag will help you to use in conditions later or search for a purpose based on tags. Then here you can specify what is the duration of the consent, maybe 4 days, and then select the default access type. You add the attribute here, which are from the user profile. I selected email here. You click add here. Okay, you also select how long this will be stored. That will be your retention. And then you do a click on complete setup. Okay, so because once you click on complete setup, it's going to show you a purpose, which is something similar to marketing. Okay, so here you see the purpose is already created. Okay, then what do you do with this? You have to associate it with the application. Okay, so let me show you how to associate it. So you go to the applications, locate the settings for that particular application. You will see when it opens up, there is a privacy tab. And here you can add the purposes or EULA. For example, I'll add the purpose here, which I already have created. Okay, added here. So this is not going to be enough because I promise you that I'll show you EULA agreements as well. So I already have created one end user license agreement. Let's try to create one. So you can say terms of use, and then EULA ID 1, you will have to accept terms of use, and then you can tag as EU NGD. And then here you can either provide a document or you can provide a URL, maybe something like this. And then you click on complete setup and it will create a EULA for you. Okay. So what we are going to use is, we are not going to use the example EULA we created. So it's in draft mode, so I'm just going to delete it. So I'm going to use accept agreement, which is already created, which is based on an HTML file. Okay, so what it is created, but it's not going to give you any prompt to accept this EULA, because I have to attach it to the application. So how do I do it? I go to the application, and then I need to go again to the privacy profile, which I went last time when I added purpose, and here I'm going to select the EULA. So that's it. Okay, and then I'll just give you a brief idea about, I have a policy and there is a default rule. Okay, now let's log in as Scott and check whether you see those EULA prompts now or not. Okay, one before I initiate the relying party flow, here, this is the way I have specified in my relying party configuration how to send, like how to tell Verify SaaS that I'm requesting consent for marketing purpose for the attribute email, and the access type is default. This is the way to request consent for that. Similarly, for EULA, this is EULA ID, and then the /dot. Okay, this is the syntax that you need to use. Because I've used that already, so if I try to, so this time I'm getting the consent. Okay, so last time when I showed you a simple login, there were no consent around allow access to my email for marketing, and there was no EULA agreement. So I'm going to select both here and then continue. So it's just going to sign in into the application. Okay, so this is an example. Now what I'm going to demonstrate you also, like how now this user wants to know what are the consents collected for this user. Then this person can go to profile and settings on the right hand side and click on privacy. So they can see the collected consents here. And if they select and click, they can see on the right hand side all the details about the consents. What is the application purpose, when the consent was collected, and for how long the consent is valid. Okay, you see till August 31 it is valid. Okay, so now this consent is created, is captured for that user. So let's see what happens, or how do we maintain the versioning of the EULA or data purpose. So I'm going to log in as an admin user again. Okay, and I'm going to demonstrate to you, what if I change the purpose? Okay, and what if I change the EULA agreement? So let's say this is a EULA agreement, and I'm going to create a draft of this, and I say it's no longer test. Okay, and then I add another tag to this, and probably I just change my terms of use document. I'm going to click on, create draft, and that is going to give me these two settings, publish settings. One is, do you want users to consent again, or do you want users to consent again? So this one, second option is that one. If you do not want users to consent again, you select the first option. So what I'm going to do is I want the user to consent again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to publish this draft. So this becomes my active EULA. So if you click on version history, you're going to see this is the latest one is V6. And so if you go to the last version, you see test still highlighted here, right? You see test here. So this is how you can switch to that EULA agreement as well. So I have made change to EULA. So let's start the login again. So what I expect is I expect that when the user starts the login flow, it is asked for EULA consent, but it shouldn't be asked for purpose consent because I have not made any changes to the purpose. Let's access the application again. So here, because I have already consented for the purpose, it didn't ask me that because I didn't change it, but I changed my EULA agreement and this time it asked me to consent again. Okay. So now what I'm going to take you through is the most important item is around the rules. Okay. So what are the rules in IS IBM Security Verify? So I'm going to log in as admin user and just going to go to the admin, switch to admin console. So till now, what we have seen is we have seen how to log into the admin console and create a data purpose EULA agreement and assign it to the application. What I'm going to show you is data policy. So data policy is a set of multiple rules. For now, there is a default rule which is already and always attached to it. The compliance of the regulatory compliance are incorporated in terms of the rule. Let's create an example rule and see what does it matter or what does it mean. If you just give a marketing rule name, some description rule to cater to maybe GDPR requirement, and you can add some GDPR EU and then do next. You can add a condition set like this rule is applicable for what purpose. So you have different is it applicable for a particular purpose, a user attribute or access type, or for a particular, like you can have a different rule for India, you can have some different rule for Europe, okay, and you can have combination of these. So I can say, okay, purpose is marketing. Okay, when the purpose is marketing, do this. So this is the consent type I discussed in my previous slide. So what you have these options like required user consent, which is a allow or deny type consent. Then you have opt-in, opt-out of purpose, transparency, or do not show purpose to user, which is for backward compatibility. So here we are going to select opt-in or opt-out, and we are going to disclose that. And we are going to say that, okay, this is going to be pre-selected. Then there is a decision point as well. So the first one determines how the consent is presented to the user, how it is captured, and then the rules are the governing what to do about the collected consents. And both of these settings go hand in hand together. So in decisions, what I can set is even though the user has consent or denied it, just allow it or deny the user. So for example, you had a requirement wherein you already collected consent and some part of compliance wanted it to allow at that time allow, but now there are some changes in the regulatory rules and you want to set it as deny. So either whether the user has already consented or not, you can deny using this rule. Then there is an implicit consent and then explicit consent, like you need to specify if there is a consent which is collected from the user, it has to be allowed if user has consented to it, opted it, or viewed the purpose. Okay, so you can give a reason saying that, okay, GDP or compliance for collecting email from the user. Okay. So then you see next, what this rule lifetime tells is like when this rule is going to be valid and till what date it's going to be active. So this typically solves your problem when there are a lot of changes in the compliance, or then what you can do is you can create a rule one which has an expiration till date one, and then you can write a rule two which is going to take over from there. So that there you can set the activation. So I'm not going to set anything. So this is an example of creating a rule. So I'm just going to cancel this one and I'll show you an existing rule which is created. So there is a reason which is why it is not in the policy, because it's not attached to the policy. Okay, so let's look at the marketing rule that I already created. So what you will see is this is a similar kind of rule, very straightforward for a purpose marketing. And in this, what I'm going to do is my opt-in is already selected. So when you are going to see a purpose, when I'm going to log in as another user, what you will see is that when a prompt is shown or when an option is given to collect the consent uh, will automatically be checked in, because that is what this rule says. Okay, let's do that, but I cannot do that unless I attach it to the policy. Okay, let's attach it to the policy, and I say, okay, this is the policy here. So one policy, there is a policy which I can attach several rules, and then the evaluation starts from top. Whatever rule matches first is that decision is returned, and that's where it stops. So I've attached this rule to the policy, and if you go back to the privacy policy, you see two rules. One is marketing and default. With that, let's log into a user and see how. So what you need to note is how the opt-in is presented. So it'll already be checked in, because I have said that in the rule. So I'm going to log in as a user, Jessica, and going to see how the consent is presented. Okay, let me launch the application here. And yes, you see, the allow access to my email for marketing is already checked in or opted in, because I have said that in the rule. So before this, you had a default rule which did not specify anything like that, but I can override that with my own existing rule, which says that allow access to my email, which is already opted in. Okay, so I can also show you another example of rule. So let's say that, okay, I just consent to it. For now, let's see that, okay, I'll give you how I write another rule with some enhanced conditions. So I have another use case wherein I have an admin user, and for that admin user, I don't want the consent to be shown. Okay, so for that admin user, I will allow the rule to go through if that admin user comes in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this is my admin user. So before the rule, I'll show you what happens. So before the rule, it gets options to agree to the consents. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the admin. I'm going to write a new rule wherein it allows by default. So you won't be seeing that. So I'll go to the policy. I'll go to the rules, and I'll select marketing rules for admin. So what is important here is see how I have written the condition. What I made sure that this rules covers both purposes except agreement, the EULA one, and then it does a match whether the user group is admin, whether this user is part of admin, and it also does marketing. So it figures out that, okay, this EULA and marketing EULA and marketing purpose is in play. Okay, for this, what I want rule engine to make a decision is allow this user regardless of consent. So whether this user has a consent or not, allow it. So you will see that, okay, the application has a way of determining this how the verify application is there, which determines that, okay, for this, there's no need to show the prompt to the user. Okay, that's applications interpretation. That's where I, I, I want to highlight that these rules are written and then application has to interpret it and present this user if this user experience is with application. So what I'm going to do is I have already shown you what happens when the rule is not attached. So I'm going to attach the rule. I'm not going to change the sequence. I want this rule to be evaluated first. But these arrows, you can change the sequence, how the evaluation of rule should happen. And then I'm going to save the changes. So if I go back to the privacy policy, I'm going to see the marketing rules for admin. So since this is an admin user, I'll just go to the uh, application again, and then I'll show you. So here you will see that now it hasn't asked for any um, consent, because anyway this user will be allowed to go through and use the application. So that answers scenarios where you can manipulate with the rules. Okay, and then if I log in as Jessica, which is a data privacy officer, so it will have a particular view. And what I want to demonstrate that what are the options a data privacy officer gets. Okay, so you will get the options about data privacy and consent, but if you go to the application, you will not, this data privacy officers will not see a privacy tab here. It cannot attach those. Okay. Now, the data privacy officers will know how, we will get information about what consents have been collected and other details by going to the user consents tab. They will have a filter option where they can type in a particular purpose. And yeah, you want to see, okay, what are the marketing purposes marketing, and how many users have maybe just opted in for it. And see, so there is one user who opt in for this consent. Okay. Along with this, the data privacy officer also has a report, which is an audit report, wherein it gets to know about all the types of activity which happened around consent, like whether it's created, deleted, it gets to know about those information. Okay. And then lot more details when you click on the respective consent, like what was the source, where it came from, when the consent begins on the right hand side, if you're looking at, then what is the consent IP. Okay. So these are information. So you also have filter options where you can filter based on maybe actions, whether it's created or like whether a consent is deleted, right? So who deleted the consent? So you're going to see that. With this, I like the obvious question is, how do we assign a data privacy rule to a particular user? That's a generic ISV question, so that I can answer by taking you to the admin console again, and then going to the admin page, and then you can go to the user and groups. You can go to groups and then click on data privacy persona. And if you see the details about it, you will see the user Jessica is part of it. Okay. Along with that, what you're going to see is we also have privacy profiles, which is collection of EULA and purposes, and that you can assign to identity providers directly. So we have uh, that support for, you can assign it to the SAML identity providers. So this explains the use cases that I wanted to demonstrate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you back to the PPT here. Just to give you what you saw. What you saw is you logged into ISV as required persona, and then you created a purpose as marketing, created an also an EULA. Then you created a privacy policy, added condition uh, into that rule, and then you associated that rule to privacy policy. You also attach that purpose to the application, to the privacy tab, and then initiated the application and then observe what consent collected. You also saw how you collected it for a data, how data privacy officer saw the audit information, how a user has a way to delete or delete the collected consent is from the user profile and settings tab. With that, the summary of this session is because you clearly saw how the Verify SaaS provides you a persona with a separate view where the profile privacy officers has a way to create rules, create purposes, and then developers they just have to consume those consents and based on the rules that are specified. So that helps to streamline the process where the privacy officers can just update the rules as in when the regulatory compliance changes, and then developer who have been consuming the those uh, purposes, EULAs, will continue to do that as per the rules that are applicable in the privacy policy. We also see 2 point of integration. That is, one is where the enforcement point is Verify SaaS, and then other one is where enforcement point is the application which uses SDK or REST APIs to communicate with data privacy engine. I'm also going to point you to useful resources. So if you want to read more around it, you go to these documentation. There is a good read on the current SDK that is provided and the REST APIs that comes, which will help you to interact with consent management engine.